Delighted to welcome back on the show a man who's been changing the world in weight management and mixed martial arts the last few months. Last time we were speaking with this man, it's Lou Giordano, obviously working with Johnny Hendricks, and most recently big Johnny Bones Jones. Sorry, I'm always getting tongue-tied. I did it last week as well on the show. But he's worked with a whole host of names, Aljamain Sterling, Shorty Torres, as we had on the show last week. But he's announced he's going to be partnering up with Andrei Arlovski as well for his big fight next week against Alistair Overeem in Rotterdam, where we'll both be there. I'll obviously be covering the fight. So, Lou, how are you, first of all, brother? It's been a busy time for you. How you keeping, man?
Man, it's been great. I really haven't had that much time to really take anything in except work. Right after John's fight, I hopped back on the plane and, got picked up by Andre. We went right to the food store. So, just keeping the pedal to the metal and staying focused.
Definitely. I want to, just before we touch on Arlovski and the announcement yesterday of that partnership, Jon Jones, first of all, what was it like working with Jon? Obviously, he's had a lot of problems, as we know, well-documented problems. Was it hard to keep Jon on track ahead of this fight to work with the way you want him eating clean?
No, working with Jon was great. I got to know Jon as a person. And I said this a few times. I've always been a fan of Jon Jones, the fighter. How could you not be a fan of that man in the cage? I didn't know him personally, and I learned at a young age, you don't judge anybody that you don't know. So after being out here for 10 weeks and getting to work side by side with Jon, I actually became a fan of Jon Jones, the person. The media only likes to focus on the negative and the bad things. I got to see everything. I got to see him giving homeless people money, giving homeless people food, paying for things in stores for other people that, might not necessarily have money. Nobody sees that. Nobody talks about it. Jon certainly don't talk about it because that's not who he is. He doesn't need to brag about the things he does out of the kindness of his heart. So it really was just great to be able to see that side. And he was really awesome to work with. He ate whatever I put in front of him, so it made my job easy.
You've obviously as well forged other partnerships. We'll talk about Andre in a minute down there. Obviously, he fights in Jackson Wink as well. Looking at the fight itself, Lou, it's Jon's first fight in a long time. He's put on a lot of weight. What was that like, you going in with him and having to deal? Was there any issues with the extra muscle that he had put on his body?
I'll tell you what made it easy. Going in, my concern was this, that I've spoken to a lot of fighters, work with a lot of fighters, and the one thing that drives me crazy and makes no sense to me is that when somebody is brought in to do nutrition, they don't communicate with the strength and conditioning coaches, and sometimes they don't even communicate with the head coach or striking coach.
Of course.
I communicated with Jon's coaches every single day. I communicated with his strength and conditioning coach every other day. Coming out here, he already had a great base. His wife does such a great job at making sure he's been eating healthy when he's home. That also made my job very easy. So big credit to her too. And the fact that his strength and conditioning coach and I both were open to discussion as far as what my theory is, what his theory is, it just made the transition that much easier. So we really didn't have any real major problems because we all communicated.
We look at Jon's performance, a lot of the media, it was a little bit of a flat performance from Jon. A lot of people expected him to finish the fight even after the timeout. In relation to what you did with Jon and with the weight management, how did you assess his performance and his cardio on Saturday?
It's funny. I was sitting, ringside, and I thought that he performed very well. And I'm not saying that from a biased standpoint because this is, again, what people don't know. Being with Jon for 10 weeks, the one thing I learned is that man obsesses over film and studying his opponent. And makes sense, the man's a 9-time world champ. So the best champions in the world, of course, study their opponent to the best of their ability. And when I tell you Jon was studying DC for 8 weeks, every day, all day long, we had meetings. We started, going to the gym earlier in the morning, studying every single thing. And then to switch opponents, and not only switch opponents, but to switch to a southpaw opponent, which is a totally different style. Yeah. I think Jon fought the best fight he could for that moment. He didn't look tired. He wasn't weak. I think he could have finished the fight, but I think he also wanted some ring time as well. So I think that it was an awesome performance from Jon. And I'm not saying that from a biased standpoint. OSP's a dangerous guy, and he's not easy to be finished. He knocked out Shogun. He's a dangerous fighter. So Jon fought a very intelligent fight.
No, I agree. I think, a lot of people weren't giving John the credit he deserved because of the fact you mentioned there that, there was a change of opponent. It's his first fight in a long time back. So things can only get better for John as far as I'm concerned. And, we're going to look forward probably to UFC 200 now. Our hometown hero here, a lot of fans, Conor McGregor, was supposed to be on. But is that where you think John's going to go next? Do you think it's going to be UFC 200 against DC?
I think John, will fight DC in DC's backyard tomorrow. I don't. It doesn't matter. I know he wants to fight him, and it doesn't matter when. I'd like to see him fight at Madison Square Garden. I think that would be an awesome experience for everybody and for John. But you know what? To be honest with you, right now I'm partnered with Andre, and I'm not thinking about John or John's next fight or UFC 200. I'm thinking about May 8th. I'm thinking about today. And just whatever I got to do for Andre, my focus is 100%, with him. So
we talked about that. Obviously, the last time you were on the show, you were looking after Johnny. You've obviously had a lot more people approach you. You've been working with a lot more guys. I know you've worked with Aljamain in the past. Shorty Torres, I think you're working with after his next fight.
Still working with him.
Yeah, he's talking about dropping to 125. It's obviously opened up a lot of doors for you to work with a lot of other guys because they've seen what you've done with a couple of the guys. How do you mix it all together from a personal standpoint for you? Do you have to turn down guys?
Guys like Short.
Do you have to turn down?
You there?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just broke up a little bit. I didn't hear the last part of that question.
Do you have to turn down, clients that people might want to acquire your services?
I think I'm at that point, to be honest with you, because I realize that when I work with somebody, man, I put everything I have into working with them. It's exhausting mentally, emotionally. I lose sleep. I lose weight because I stress over it, and not in a negative way. Stress doesn't always have to be a negative thing. I look at it, my stress is keeping me on my toes and making sure that I don't let my guard down with my athlete. But a guy like Shorty, he makes my job very easy. He follows directions very well. I don't worry about him straying from the program. He sends me pictures all the time. So things like that definitely make my job easy. But like I said in the beginning, when I first started getting interviewed, before I even had all these athletes, I'm not looking to work with 75 different people. I'm not trying to have a revolving door like some of these other guys to build a business. I'm not a business person. You could ask my brother. I'm not a business person. I'm looking to build genuine relationships. And when I get that with a few fighters, that's it. I'll probably never work with another heavyweight until Andre retires. That's the relationship that I build with my guys. It's a true relationship. It's not a business relationship.
Andrei Arlovski, you announced the news, I think yesterday, it came out or the day before during the week, that you're going to be working with him ahead of his fight next week in Rotterdam. What can you do with Andre? What have you seen with Andre that you can manage things differently from?
And that's a good question, because when people think of heavyweights, they don't think that they need to worry about their weight, And most heavyweights are not in the greatest shape. They rely on one-punch knockout power. But if you follow Andre's career, which this is why I've been a huge fan of Andre's from day one, when I first saw him fight, and he won the belt back in the day, I believe, against Tim Sylvia, the man doesn't move like a heavyweight. He was in great shape. He moves like a lightweight. And he has knockout power, and he had a mouthpiece with fangs on it. So how could you not like a person like that? So just getting to meet him in Albuquerque, I didn't go up to him trying to promote my business. I went up as a fan to shake the man's hand. And at the end of the day, heavyweights need weight management just as much as a bantamweight. We're not looking to have Andre lose weight. We're looking to just make sure that he's in the best shape of his life. And at the stage of his career, he's dedicated to do everything and anything he can to ensure that. So, that's why we formed our partnership.
What can you see? Have you seen a difference in his training and the way he's been going about, his life and conducting himself in the lead up to training and the build up to this fight?
You know what? He's already leaner. He's faster. He's still hitting hard. His coaches are loving how he moves, and he's happy. So that's my biggest concern. When I speak to my athlete, my first question is how are you feeling? And if they tell me they feel great, then guess what? We're going to continue doing what we're doing. If they tell me they don't feel good, then I'm going to rack my brain. I'm going to lose sleep until I figure out how to make them feel great. So if he's happy, I'm happy. That's all that matters to me. And, now I'm getting to watch Andre train even more. And, no disrespect to Overeem, but I certainly would not want to be standing across the cage from Arlovski right now.
Well, when you're working with, a guy like Shorty Torres, who's, potentially looking to go down to 125, and you've Andrei Arlovski at, like, the limit's 265. I asked you this, I think, before the last time we touched on it. It must be very challenging for you mentally to assess a program for the fighter and to put this program into place.
It is. A lot of my core principles actually all stay the same. And that's the beauty of what it is that I do. But the biggest difference, with working with Andre, I get to smile a little bit more because, A, I don't have the stress of worrying about making weight. I get to eat a little bit more food. So, of course, I'm happy because, like I always say, I try to eat whatever my clients are eating, especially if I'm cooking for them. So I get to eat a little bit more food. It keeps me happy. And fight week is not going to, with my guys, fight week's never about weight. And that's one of the things that I pride myself on. We don't stress about weight because we're so close to it to begin with. With Andre for fight week, it's just going to be about relaxing, making sure that everything is done the way that it should be, and just kind of have fun. And I think that when a high-level athlete gets to focus on themselves, their mind, and having fun, they perform differently.
Lou, just a couple more before I let you go. I know you're about to go into training with the guys there. BJ Penn, are you going to be working with BJ? He's gone back down to featherweight. Is that something that BJ has looked upon, obviously being down there in Jackson Wink now at the moment?
Again, I'll say this, that my focus is Andrei Arlovski for the next few weeks, and we'll see what the future holds for Loutrition come May 9th, right after Andrei's fight. And I will have some, other announcements to make afterwards, but right now my focus is one person and one person only, and that's the Pitbull, Andrei Arlovski. So,
Lou, just fill me in on one last thing. Have you been in crazy stuff down there in Albuquerque? We know cowboys floating around there, and the ranch isn't too far away from there. Have you been in any mad stuff with Cowboy?
Not yet. Him and I have gotten to get a little more familiar with each other, which is cool. I think the world of him. How could you not be a fan of Cowboy Cerrone? He's got another big fight coming up June 18th. So, again, who knows what the future holds for Loutrition and some other fighters at Jackson Wink. But, again, right now my focus is Andre.
Lou, it's been a real pleasure yet again to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to catching up with you in Rotterdam next week over in lovely Netherlands and in Holland. So looking forward to that. I do appreciate the time as always, my friend.
Thank you, man. I love doing your show, and hopefully, like when we get out to Rotterdam, we'll get to hang out, and then right afterwards, I'd love to come back on your show. Just call Brian Levick up, man. He's the best, hands down, the best PR person in the entire business, a true friend. So big shout out to him, but let's link up with him again, and I'd love to do your show again and fill you in on all the updates.
Definitely looking forward to seeing you in Rotterdam, as I said. So take care.
we may take a trip to Amsterdam while we're out there. We'll see.
I think so. I think that would have to be done when in Rome, as they say.
Well, listen, exactly. I agree, and make sure you guys tune into the fight. May 8th. You're going to see the Pitbull, in a whole new light, man. So it's going to be exciting.
Can't wait for it. And you can catch Lou on his website, loutrition.net, and on Twitter @Loutrition. So, Lou, big pleasure. Chat to you soon, buddy. Thanks a million for the time.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.